Knowledge is power. Know what you have as far as your GPA. You should know how your GPA breaks down. If you're still struggling with your GPA, I have students who have like transcripts from overseas or whatever it is. You need to go the extra mile to have those transcripts evaluated for equivalency for the states. I also highly recommend that if you need some personal guidance on what courses to take, that you look at TeachRN. There are sometimes opportunities to get transcript reviews. Well, hello, future CRNA. Welcome back to CRNA School Prep Academy. I am so excited to be back. For those of you who have followed the show, I have taken a little bit of a hiatus from the show. For those of you who are new, welcome back or welcome. My name is Jenny, CRNA and founder of CRNA School Prep Academy. I have taken about 6 months off the podcast. However, I did leave you in excellent company. We have had SRNAs on the show, and I hope you really have enjoyed the valuable insights they have shared. We will be bringing more SRNAs on the show, as well as faculty members on the show to do some higher level education. So I hope you're really excited about that. That is to come later this year in 2024. But today I wanted to come back to an episode and kind of kick this back off with, what do you need to know to become a CRNA in 2024? Because the playing field has shifted a little bit. We're definitely in this post-COVID era, and I have noticed a lot of changes within the CRNA realm when it comes to being competitive for CRNA school. So I wanted to make sure I bring this episode to you in a timely manner as we kind of work our way into 2024. So that way you are successful in your CRNA journey. So let's go ahead and get into today's show. All right, I'm going to start this episode off with talking about competition. I know the dreaded word, competitive. I know you know it's competitive to become a CRNA. I know that is like the standard mindset. Everyone goes into becoming a CRNA. It's like, oh my gosh, am I competitive enough? Well, let's talk about what that looks like in 2024. So back when the pandemic hit, I think I didn't personally know. I actually predicted wrong. I guess that people would not apply to CRNA school because they'd be too distracted with everything going on. And maybe they would dive into the travel industry, which definitely happened. But we actually saw the opposite, which is that we saw record numbers of applicants coming into CRNA programs. And really that trend has actually continued to this day, where people are still in record numbers applying to CRNA school. Why that is, maybe they're burnout at bedside, maybe, they're realizing, that again, they're itching for a career change. Maybe again, there could be a lot of factors going into this. I also think there's a lot of people with today, what is going on with the economic situation, people are looking for a way to earn more income. And obviously CRNA, we do earn a much higher income than a bedside nurse. There could be a lot of different factors going on. And maybe just the fact that it's a very interesting career path that has a really high growth potential. So a lot of job availability. And again, if you ever heard, I've heard people tell me a false rumor that the job market's saturated. That's actually the opposite. We are booming right now. The CRNA market is really at its probably the highest peak that it's been since I've been in the profession for coming up on 10 years. So this is being my 10-year anniversary of being a CRNA. Gosh, is that real? Oh my gosh, I feel old now. But yeah, so I've been a CRNA for 10 years, and by far this is kind of, we've hit like what I have seen to be the peak. And I thought back when I got into this profession that we were kind of surging, and it's become more and more and more. It's just kind of grown. It has not slowed down. So it's a great profession, a great career path for nurses to choose to go into if they're seeking growth opportunities, both with practice and with income potential. So the competition is hot, you guys. And I know I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I don't think that it's going to decrease anytime soon. So what does that mean for you? It just means that you have to understand what you bring to the table. And I think you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone and push yourself to do things that you maybe don't want to do, like taking extra science courses or going to conferences or taking different leadership roles. It's going to mean that you're going to have to step out of that comfort zone of wherever you may currently be in your ICU setting and do something different. Because I've heard a lot of faculty tell me, a lot of these applicants look the same on paper. So how do you take all these applicants who look practically the same and differentiate between who is going to make it and who's not? So it's a very hard thing to do. But again, we're going to break down some other avenues that you can kind of differentiate yourself and kind of stand out amongst the competition. So number one, as far as how to stand out amongst the competition, is really evaluating your grades. And I feel like I say this all the time, but I really can't say it enough, because this is by far the most common reason I see people not even get an interview as far as their CRNA application goes. And they don't understand why. They think their grades are okay. They think their grades are fine. And when you really dig into the nitty gritty, breaking down a transcript, you realize, well, you're not fine. Have you really figured out your science GPA? Because even though your overall GPA is a 3.5, your science GPA is not even a 3.0. And so if that's the case, you're going to be really hard pressed to even get an interview, and you're going to feel stumped because you're like, what the heck? I'm a 3.5 student. What's going on? You really have to look at all of your transcripts. And sometimes, you guys, you have a lot of sciences under your belt. Ouch. You have like tons of chemistry and biology because maybe you were a pre-med major or something like that. And you have, 30, 40, sometimes I've seen science courses. It's so hard when you have that much under your belt already to really make a dent in a lower science GPA. And okay, you didn't know you wanted to pursue CRNA. You thought you didn't think you needed good grades in those courses. You just wanted to pass them, right? That is the story that I hear over and over and over again. I'm telling you right now, unfortunately, they're not going to sway because you didn't know what you wanted to do or because you just thought you needed a C to get by. They're not going to say, okay, well, we'll give you a shot now. It doesn't work like that. Essentially, if you're coming up against having a lower GPA, when I say low GPA, what does that mean? The average CRNA acceptance right now for GPA, you're looking at a 3.7. That is the average. Where I would say a couple years ago, I probably would have said a 3.5. The majority of schools are getting so many applicants now that that benchmark has gotten higher and higher and higher. They don't have to let in a 3.2 student because they have so many 3.5 or higher or 3.7 students to pick from. They're still getting enough candidates to not have to even give the lower GPA student a shot. And so what does that mean for you? I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer or discourage you from trying, because I definitely don't want that to be the case, but you do have to do something about it. You can't just sit still and think it'll be okay, because it won't be okay. You have to take action and do something about having a GPA, especially a science GPA, that is on the lower side. And the lower side, really, this day and age for a science GPA, you really want a 3.4 or higher for a science GPA. If you have a 3.2, a 3.3, a 3.1, a 3.0, you really should be thinking, can I do something to boost that? And if you have just done the standard nursing courses and have, the standard science courses that go with a nursing degree, which would be things like chemistry, biology, anatomy, pathophysiology, maybe a math course like algebra, that may be all you have. Well, that leaves you room to really take an additional graduate level science course like graduate statistics or graduate A&P, a graduate pharmacology, and really help boost your overall science GPA. So that is something that's very realistic for you to achieve, especially if you only have, 3-4 science courses in your undergraduate career. You can boost that GPA pretty easily. The students that struggle more are the ones who have a lot of sciences and a lot of them are low, because then if you're filling the pot with more and more low grades, and it's harder and harder to get that pot to boil. If you keep putting ice cubes in it, and the low grades are the ice cubes, and you can't get that pot to boil because you just have so much ice in there. And so really, if you're in that situation, my recommendation is you still have to take advanced science courses, graduate level science courses, to prove you can get an A. However, no, you're still going to face more rejection than not. And there are other pathways such as the LEAP program, which I often send students to if I feel like, well, I'm not saying don't apply to regular schools. You definitely do. I think you should always give yourself that shot. But know that, based on this GPA, that's not even a 3.0 science GPA, you may not really ever be able to get that interview that you need, even though I know you'd shine if you got that interview. That's really unfortunate. So again, there's a pathway called the LEAP program. It's through Case Western. I often recommend students to do that if I feel that they would be a good fit. You have to have above a 2.7 GPA to apply to that program. It is also competitive. It's not like you're a shoo-in if you have a 2.7 for that program. It's still very competitive. A lot of times they're accepting students with a 3.0, a 3.1. So it's still a competitive program. So you can't stand still. You still can't stand still, even if you think you're going for the LEAP, because again, it's still competitive. So the biggest takeaway here is you have to take action. You have to show these programs that you're capable of getting A's in hard science courses, retaking old science courses. If you got a D especially, or a C, gosh forbid you got an F. I mean, you need to be retaking these courses and you need to be getting an A. I often see too, students are like, well, I took a graduate level pathophysiology course and I got a B. And I'm like, oh, that's really heartbreaking, because I feel like you really needed that A. You really need that A, because why? A B is not a bad grade. I know it's not. However, if you look at the grading scale for these programs, if you get an 82%, sometimes 84% or lower, you're out of the program in a core anesthesia course. A B minus is considered failing. So getting a B is barely above failing. And that's why it's such a kind of a heartbreaking experience to have a student try to take these graduate level courses and only get a B. Gosh forbid you get a C. But you really need to be getting that A. That's going to show them that you're capable of achieving that grade that you're going to need to be successful in their program. So grades is one of the most common things I think CRNA hopefuls struggle with. And it is possible. I've seen 2.9 students go on to be successful, but usually when I see a student who has a lower GPA, it's usually overall lower GPA, meaning their overall GPA is more closer to 3.0. But their science GPA is usually higher. If that's your case, you have a much better shot because they care a lot about your science GPA. So if you have a 3.6 science GPA, 3.7 science GPA, but maybe only a 3.1 overall, you're in a better position than if you were that student who had a 3.7 overall and a 3.1 science GPA. So again, take this very seriously. You have to take action if your science GPA is low. We do have a free GPA calculator on our website now. So if you go to CRNASchoolPrepAcademy.com, again, we have a free GPA calculator. You can get the results sent to your phone. You can come back to the application if you take courses to add new courses in there to make sure to keep it updated to see where you fall. So if you want to go take a few sciences and come back, you can again come back to our website and enter those grades to see, well, now what is my science GPA now that I've taken these courses and I've gotten an A. So we made that tool. It's free for you to use. I really can't stand this being a problem point for our students who just don't know what they have. Knowledge is power. Know what you have as far as your GPA. You should know how your GPA breaks down. If you're still struggling with your GPA, I have students who have like transcripts from overseas or whatever it is. You need to go the extra mile to have those transcripts evaluated for equivalency for the states. I also highly recommend that if you need some personal guidance on what courses to take, that you look at TeachRN. There are sometimes opportunities to get transcript reviews. I know Dr. B, who works as an expert contributor with CSPA, she often does transcript audits through teachrn.com. So that's also an option for you. But first and foremost, visit our website, do it for free, GPA calculator on website, and see where you stand. All right, that's enough on grades. That was a lot. Hey, future CRNA, another daily dose of inspiration along your CRNA journey. In today's success story, we're going to share kind of an untraditional experience from one of our students. So the post reads, I'm so excited to post I was accepted into CRNA school. I interviewed at my dream school. The meeting and panel showed me that this was really not the place for me. Although it was close to my home, the culture and I weren't a match. So after a bit of a traumatic interview experience, I was invited to interview at another school. Side note that I applied to 3 schools, waitlisted at 1. The negative feeling was mutual at my top choice. They accepted at the program that became one of her dreams. Anyway, I called and spoke with the director before the interview, and within minutes, I was excited beyond words. There was a warmth and character that resonated with me. I moved forward with the interview. A couple hours after the interview, they offered me a position in the cohort for the spring. Mind you, the application was for spring 2024, not 2023. So what an incredible surprise that I get to start my journey a year earlier. I don't think this would have been possible without CRNA School Prep Academy and my mock interview. Larissa was fantastic for the mock interview and helped me get over unsettling experience from my former dream school. The podcast, lectures, resources, mock interview, all CSPA had to offer made this possible. Thank you so much. Don't give up. Don't be afraid to be untraditional in your career path. Study and believe in yourself. Things turn out the way they are meant to be.
I just love this so much because while this student had an unfortunate experience at what they thought was their dream school, they turned it around. And they also were waitlisted at a school that didn't start till 2024. And when they got asked to interview at the third school, they were so shaken up by their previous experience that they decided to call and talk directly to this program prior to even interviewing. Now, mind you, they had already knew they had a seat at a school, but didn't start till 2024. But after talking with this other program faculty, they knew they had to give themselves a chance to interview. They felt instantly connected to this program faculty, and they were so happy they did because they got in just a few hours after the interview, and they get to start CRNA school an entire year sooner. So I wanted to share this with you because I thought this was really inspirational. And it just goes to show that kind of what we have preached before in the show is that this is a two-way street. You are picking your programs, and you may have your dream program in mind, but the reality is it may not be the right fit. And you may have to kind of improvise and pivot to a different school. And it may actually turn out to be the best decision for you ultimately is to not get into what you think is your dream school. So go into it with an open mind. I'm rooting for you. Thank you so much for sharing this story. Congratulations. You know who you are, and I'm always cheering you on.
One last thing on grades though, because I get asked this a lot as a follow-up question. Well, what courses, Jenny? So, number one, I think you should reach out to your schools because you don't want to just take courses to take courses. It's expensive and time consuming. And if you mess up or make a mistake in a course you take, you can really, really hurt your chances. So you got to be very strategic when you pick what courses you want to take. Don't sign up for, 3 science courses and you're working full time and you're taking your CCRN and your GRE. Put all your effort into that one course you take at a time to make sure you get that A. But, again, things like advanced pathophysiology, you would enroll in these graduate programs as a non-matriculated student and take these courses. If you're part of CSPA, on the resource page, there is a spreadsheet that you can utilize that will give you a list of different colleges and online options for you to take. And is kind of how that, and then the reviews of those courses from students that we've heard from within our community. So again, on the resource page, if you're a CSPA student, there's going to be a list of college courses that you can review, that you can take to boost your science GPA. All right, and fulfill requirements for prereqs. All right, so next is ICU experience and travel. So this was kind of something that I used to coach on pre-pandemic. That was like, be cautious with travel because again, usually you don't get the highest acuity assignments and they know that. And they don't tend to look at travel as like having opportunities for leadership and things of that nature. And now things shifted in the pandemic because everybody started traveling for the most part. And it became very apparent that you were still getting very high acute patients as a traveler. While things are kind of going back the other way. I'm not saying travel is off the table. You can definitely still travel and still be successful getting into CRNA school, but be very sure on your resume and be able to speak to your experience as a traveler. How did it make you a better ICU nurse? You have to be able to speak to that experience and be able to show that you got quality experience on your travel assignments. You didn't take the low acuity assignments. You were able to do CVVHD or ECMO as a traveler. You were able to do some leadership roles as a traveler. What was that? What were those leadership roles? So again, the majority of people that I see travel these days are doing something very similar that I always recommend, which is to travel, make the money, get the money, travel, but find a unit you really resonate with that you really, really like, and then stay put for a little while, because that way you're going to build up the ability to get a good reference letter. You're going to build up the ability to have some charge nurse experience or some different leadership experience with committee work. Stay put for a while before you apply to CRNA school. That's my biggest piece of recommendation. The other thing you can do which works as well, is you can travel, but stay contingent at your home base. And you really should be building up your a good base of experience prior to traveling anyways, because if you don't get trained on CVVHD or ECMO as a staff nurse, they're not going to train you as a traveler. Like, why would they waste money and resources on a 12-week contract to train you on ECMO? They won't. So the only way you're going to be able to take those really critical assignments as a traveler is if you were doing it prior as a staff nurse. So making sure that you're getting that good experience as a staff nurse before you travel is key. but keeping that home base, your home base as like a contingent position or a PRN, a moonlighting position, whatever. So when you get off your 12-week contract, you can come back home and work a shift or two. Keeps your foot in the door, and it keeps that position current with a long-standing manager. That is how I've also seen students get around asking a current manager for a recommendation letter. If you travel every 12 weeks or, every 3 months, how are you supposed to ever build up enough to be able to ask someone for a reference? So they kind of stay contingent at their home base. And that way, technically it's an active manager that can give you a letter of recommendation. But yeah, those are things to keep in mind if you're going to be traveling, to make sure you're taking high acuity assignments, making sure that you can speak to that. If your patients are talking to you, if they're swallowing pills, if you don't see vasoactive drips, if they're getting on the toilet, they're probably not sick enough. You need to be taking care of patients who are ventilated on vasopressors, very, very, very sick acute patients. That's why they always say level 1 trauma, because it's a guarantee you're going to see very sick patients at a level 1. Not saying community hospitals don't see sick patients, they sure do, but make sure that you can highlight that on your resume, and speak to it as well. All right. That's ICU experience. And again, things like leadership, looking for different ways you can get leadership. Be creative. If you are traveling, join the AACN and get some leadership roles there. There are other ways other than unit involvement to get leadership roles. Getting involved in your community and taking charge of some type of community project is another great way to show leadership. I had someone when I went to the last NTI conference, which I'm going again this year. It's in Colorado. Be there. I hope to see you there. Give me a high five. But she said that she was a passionate gardener, and she would donate all this fresh fruits and vegetables to the local food bank. I think that's great. You should for sure highlight that. That shows that you are passionate about giving back to your community. And that's a leadership role that, again, shows your compassion. I think that's a great thing to highlight. So don't ever downplay what you think is important to you or what's in your background. Just highlight it. Make sure you're highlighting it. Because again, they'd rather you pick that you can speak to passionately than saying, oh, I volunteered at the Red Cross and I took people's blood. But if you're not passionate about getting blood, maybe you are passionate about taking people's blood because you had to receive blood once, or because your family member received blood once. Well, then do that because it sparks your passion as to why you think this is an important thing to do. That's all I'm saying. Pick something that volunteer-wise or leadership-wise that you feel passionate about, that you have a reason as to why you think this is important for you to spend your time doing, because it'll come off way more authentic in an interview when they ask you about it. Okay. Autonomous practice. I think this is a new thing that you need to consider in 2024, because this is the future of being a CRNA, is really the promotion of autonomous practice. So a lot of schools now are seeking out the ability for you to practice at these types of centers during your training. And so again, having an understanding of what a CRNA can really do and how we can practice autonomously in our own practice, I think you need to get your toes wet with this and understand what that looks like for you, and being able to speak to that and why that you would be a good fit for that type of a role. I've read some, I recently even read an admission essay that, I was like, oh, ouch. It not only called CRNA a mid-level provider, which is a big no-no. You don't do that. Don't do that. I'm telling you, don't do that. But they also called us, they said that, something about a physician and how, we're, as a nurse, you're practicing medicine. Again, these are things that you clearly don't understand the role of a CRNA or how we practice. And kind of, I would say stop right there if that was your essay, and go read Watchful Care. There's now volume 1 and volume 2. Read them both. Understand the history of nurse anesthesia and how all of this started. That'll give you a lot of insight and help you understand this profession, and essentially, why we are doing what we're doing to promote autonomous practice, to be able to spread our services to rural populations who otherwise would have to travel an hour away to get anesthesia. It's really important that, as a CRNA, that you're able to practice autonomously, and that you're kind of practicing the highest ability, or your highest ability to your certification, because that way we can provide more anesthesia for more people, essentially. And so make sure you understand that and own it, be proud of that, be excited about that, and make sure that that's being displayed in your essay versus kind of playing more of a role of I'm an assistant. That's never going to come off well. And it just shows that you just don't clearly understand the role of a CRNA. And I've even seen this from people who have shadowed. So, shadow more and read Watchful Care, really dive into this community, understand, what a CRNA can do and will be doing. And this is the future of being a CRNA. I don't know if you're listening to this, if you attended the recent ANA conference that we did with them, but it was wonderful. We went over the history of anesthesia. It was a really, really great conference. But things like that, take those opportunities when they come to get involved. And I know, I'm trying to think when this is going to air. I know they're going to be launching their RN membership. The AANA will be. Get involved, you guys. I don't think it's going to be a large investment for you, but it's going to play dividends. And as far as getting involved in our community, they're essentially saying, we're opening our arms to you. We're taking you in. Come in. We want to educate you and support you throughout your CRNA journey, even as a nurse, even if you haven't gained acceptance yet. We're here to help you. So things like that, take advantage of the ANA offering an RN membership. And again, I think that's going to be airing here any day now, that by the time this episode airs. The next is understanding your why. Really, why do you want to be a CRNA? And this kind of goes back to understanding what a CRNA really does, knowing about the profession, the history of the profession, and how you will fit into the profession, and really owning the autonomous practice that we are working hard to achieve and across the entire United States. Okay, so you have to understand that. So again, diving into this profession, not just surface level on Google, but talking to several CRNAs at different conferences, faculty members, ANA leaders, current students, understanding the politics of this profession before you even interview is going to be really, really important for you to understand your why and how you would be a good fit for this profession. And again, we're talking about how, the playing field has shifted and how this is all competition. So the more you work on understanding your why and how you'd be a good fit for this profession, the more competitive you're going to be as an applicant. And then one thing I want to stress home here too is what schools are really looking for. And I want to make sure that, again, we're paving the path for your success, is that you have to really take ownership for your own success. Always, right? No one's going to do anything for you. You have to do it yourself. We can give you the tools, we can give you the resources, but you still have to do the work. That's always been the case. It will always be the case. There's nothing in life that just comes and is handed to you. You always have to work for what's worth it in life. It takes work. It takes dedication. It takes perseverance. Sometimes it takes failure. Sometimes it takes the pivot. You have to be willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears to become a CRNA even before you even get into school. So you have to take ownership for your own failures. You have to take ownership for not doing the thing, and you have to do the thing. So again, create your own success. Schools will give you the tools to be successful, but they're not going to hold your hand and make you do it. They will expect you to do it to the fullest extent in your ability. And then they equally expect you to ask for help when you need it. Don't let a problem occur knowing you're struggling, and then because they can't help you once a problem has happened. If something bad has already occurred and it's done, that event lives in stone. Okay, so you can't erase it. The only thing you can do is pick up what's left and try to move forward. But if you're proactive and you're like, I'm really struggling, something's not going well, I really need to seek out help. That takes a lot of emotional intelligence to say, I'm raising my hand, I need help, I can't do it all, something's happening. Reach out, let them know. And again, if you're proactive in your own success, you're going to be more successful overall. So again, make sure you're creating your own success and that you're holding yourself accountable to do the actions. It's hard. It's going to always be hard. It's hard to get into school. It's hard to get through school. So think about getting into school as kind of building that grit and building that discipline, because you're going to also equally need that strength when you're in school too. All right. And then last, I kind of want to leave you with is the fact that there are lots of new programs popping up all over the place. So there's lots of opportunity out there. You shouldn't, I have people say, well, I don't know if I want to apply to a new program. Why not? If they get accredited, go. And in fact, don't just go blindly, but research the program, get to know the faculty, see if it's a good fit. If they're accredited, they're accredited to get you through school. It means that they have, and a lot of these faculty who are starting programs, by the way, have been program directors before. It's not their first rodeo. A lot of them are very seasoned and experienced, and so they know what they need to do to make sure that you're going to get the education you need to be successful. Okay, so don't be afraid to try the new programs. I hear that a lot, and there are a lot of them popping up. Bella Marine, Ursuline, Ohio State, go Bucks. Another school in Michigan that I can't mention yet because it's relatively new. It hasn't been announced yet. New Mexico's a new program. Louisville's a new program. Loyola's a new program. There are other new programs too. I didn't make this list, but pay attention and start seeking those types of programs out. I'm sure they would love to have you apply to their first or second or third cohort. Again, spread your net. If you're having issues getting to school, obviously reflect on what you can do to improve. Look in the mirror, right? Maybe it's your interview. Maybe you're coming off defensive. Maybe you're coming off as like, you know it all and you can't teach me anything because I already know it all. Like, well, that's not going to work out very well. So sometimes it's really hard to look in the mirror and say, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe something's wrong with me. And it's okay. We all have problems. I mean, we all have problems. It's just a matter of, am I willing to swallow that and do something about it? So again, the interview is really the last piece of this, which I know I said the last piece was applying to new programs, but I didn't want to miss the important interview stage. If you're lucky enough to get an interview, take a deep breath. I know you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be so freaking nervous, but you have to learn how to just calm your nerves. Try the breathing exercises where you take a deep breath in for 2 to 3 seconds and hold it and breathe it out. Practice that multiple times a day. I do that routinely, and you don't just do it when you feel anxious. You do it all the time. You'll really kind of get used to doing it throughout your day, and it really makes you feel so good. It's switching on your parasympathetic nervous system when you start to yawn. So practice that multiple times a day. The deep breathing, you take a deep breath in 2 to 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and you hold it for 2 to 3 seconds, and then you let it go. And if you do that about 4 to 5 times in a row, you're going to yawn and you're going to feel your body just kind of like come down a notch or two. Practice that because you will need that skill when you go into the interview. It's so unfortunate when I see students who are really good candidates blow the interview because they're so nervous they can't even function. And then you have to think about what if that happens in the OR? And don't get me wrong, I personally know when you're under pressure in the OR, when someone else is in front of you is circling the toilet, that's a different type of pressure than when the spotlight is on you, right? It's a different type of pressure. You can react really well under the pressure that maybe is on saving someone's life because you're very accustomed to doing it. You're very used to doing it. Having the spotlight on you is a very uncomfortable feeling that maybe you don't have a lot of experience with. So you have to learn how to shut off that nervous system and try to just take a deep breath. Also bring a water bottle with you. Take that pause to drink some water. It's just enough to give your brain time to just relax and then answer the question. Be okay with pauses. Don't worry about having to talk the entire time. It's okay to answer the question and just stop. Don't keep talking. That's usually how you get yourself in trouble. Just know when to zip it. Answer the question, but answer the question. Don't give them a surface level answer. They're going to think that's all you know. Tell them as much as you can, on a very deep level, but then be okay with just stopping when you start to feel like you can't go any further. Okay. But yeah, the interview is really, really important that you take that seriously. Don't wait till you get asked the interview to start prepping. I'm going to say that again. Don't wait to start preparing for the interview until you get asked to come interview. That is a huge mistake that happens all the time, and I don't understand it. If you apply to CRNA school, you should already be preparing for the interview. Don't assume you're not going to get an interview. You applied to CRNA school. The whole point is to get an interview. So assume you're going to get an interview and be prepared. So when you get asked to come to the interview, you're like, yes, I got this. I'm ready, versus like, what do I do now? They're going to freaking talk to me. I had no idea. Just don't do that to yourself. That's just putting yourself in a really bad situation. And then last, I want to leave you guys with a 8-step guide. It's going to be in the notes or the show notes below, or if you're on YouTube, it's going to be in the description or whatever you want to call it. But it's an 8-step comprehensive guide. We just revamped it, which is why I want to bring it up again. So you maybe already have it, download it again, because I just revamped it. I feel like we improved it quite a bit. So I want to make sure you grab it. And again, it's pretty comprehensive and it gives you a lot more in-depth help as far as how to be a competitive candidate. So again, make sure you grab that freebie down below, and you all have a wonderful day. It's so nice to be back, and I hope you enjoyed the show. We're always happy to hear from you. Please leave us a review. That really helps other people find our show. And if you find this helpful, make sure you share it with another CRNA hopeful. We appreciate that as well. All right, well, until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, future CRNA, as always, I appreciate you and your loyalty. Thank you so very much for tuning in this week. I'd love to hear from you, so screenshot this episode and share it to your IG stories with your biggest takeaway. Don't forget to tag me at CRNA School Prep Academy so I can personally thank you. Be sure to head over to CRNASchoolPrepAcademy.com to check out our blog and gather free resources to help you along your CRNA journey. Stay strong, and I'll see you next week.